Atlanta has always been the type of place where news doesn't wait for the evening broadcast. It spreads in barbershops, corner stores, and through buzzing phones before police sirens even fade in the distance. But this time, the talk wasn't just gossip whispered in the streets. It was everywhere. On blogs, in group chats, and splashed across social media feeds. The fight that left Lil Scrappy in a hospital bed wasn't being dismissed as just another heated love and hip-hop moment. Unlike the arguments that viewers had gotten used to, the kind that died down after a few episodes, this one stayed alive. It lingered because Scrappy walked out of that hospital with more than just bruises. He walked out with a decision that would change everything. For years, Scrappy had played along with the cameras, letting his pain get chopped into episodes and turned into memes for entertainment. But this time he wasn't laughing it off. He wasn't willing to let producers, fans, or even his own circle tell him to let it slide. He had nearly lost his life, and he wasn't about to let that get brushed off as just reality TV drama. This time, someone was going to answer for it, and that someone was Kirk Frost. By the time the sun came up, the internet was already on fire. Blogs pushed out headlines in bold fonts. Scrappy sues Kirk Frost. Love and hip-hop fight heads to court. Screens lit up with hashtags, Scrappy vs. Kirk, Frost on trial, justice for Scrappy. Fans clipped the fight and replayed it in slow motion, adding dramatic sound effects, turning it into TikToks that dissected every push, every shove, and every insult. Scrappy's pale face as he was rushed to the hospital became a meme template, used in thousands of posts. And with every upload, opinions split the fan base right down the middle. Some people dismissed him with quick comments, Scrappy's doing too much. It's TV, this is what y'all signed up for. Others stood firmly with him, pointing to the severity of his injuries. This man almost died. Kirk needs to be held accountable. The argument spilled into Instagram stories, Twitter threads, and YouTube reaction videos. But while the internet turned it into a circus, Scrappy himself stayed quiet. Behind the scenes, his family urged him to think twice. They wanted him to focus on healing, to move on and protect his peace. But Scrappy had already made up his mind. He wasn't fueled by rage. His voice was calm when he spoke, but there was an edge to it that let everyone know he was serious. I've been letting things slide my whole career, he told them. People think I'll just play the fool forever. Not this time. Kirk put his hands on me and I ended up in the hospital. I'm pressing charges. I'm taking him to court. His words carried a steady, chilling weight. It wasn't the anger of the moment. It was cold resolve. Meanwhile, Kirk Frost sat at home with Rashida, pacing back and forth like a man trying to convince himself that everything was under control. He muttered excuses, telling her it wasn't that deep. We've been fighting for years. He's just making it bigger than it is. It's TV, nobody's gonna take it serious. But his wife wasn't buying it. Rashida had been there. She had seen Scrappy's body go limp before the ambulance arrived. She had heard his words as he fought to stay conscious. She had watched Kirk cross lines too many times, pushing people past their limits. And with cameras rolling and now actual court papers at their doorstep, she knew this wasn't something they could just edit in post-production. Kirk, she told him quietly, her voice heavy with worry. This ain't TV no more. He's really taking you to court. We can't spin this. You need to face it. As the news spread across the cast, the reactions came quick. Yandy Smith posted a cryptic message on Instagram. At some point, enough is enough. Violence isn't entertainment. The post caught fire instantly, with fans taking it as her public show of support for Scrappy. When Mendices jumped in with a short but powerful comment, facts, the conversation shifted again. Suddenly, this wasn't just about two men who got physical on camera. It became a bigger question of responsibility, safety, and whether these so-called storylines had gone too far. Not everyone wanted to pick sides. Young Jock, for example, tried to stay neutral during a messy interview with Vlad TV. Man, it's crazy, he said. I was right there. I seen both sides. I just hope they work it out. But to fans, his attempt to straddle the fence looked weak. They wanted answers, not fence sitting. They wanted him to take a stand. Within weeks, the first court date was announced, and that's when things really exploded. The producers, of course, couldn't resist the pull. For them, this was ratings gold, even if it meant exploiting the seriousness of the moment. The courthouse itself transformed into something like a red carpet event. Photographers lined the steps, flashing cameras as Scrappy arrived in a sharp black suit. His face was stone cold, no jewelry, no chains, no performative smiles. He looked like a man who wasn't here to play, a man ready for war. Moments later, Kirk appeared with Rashida on his arm. He tried to look unbothered, but the sweat gathering on his forehead betrayed him. Rashida held his arm tighter than usual, her public loyalty unshaken, but the weight in her eyes gave her away. She was carrying more than just her husband's stress. She was carrying years of headlines, cheating scandals, and the constant burden of being tied to Kirk's decisions. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense, almost unbearable. The benches were packed, not just with fans who lined up outside for a glimpse, but also with producers, bloggers, and reporters ready to document every second. Some bloggers were already typing headlines before the judge even entered. Then the room shifted when the judge finally arrived. His gavel hit hard against the wood, echoing through the silence. His first words were stern. "This is not VH1, this is not entertainment. This is a court of law." The statement cut through the chatter like a blade, and for the first time, even the producers in the back seemed uneasy. The charges were read: Scrappy versus Kirk Frost. Assault and battery. The courtroom grew colder with those words. For years, these two men had thrown shade at each other, sometimes even throwing punches, but it always stayed within the bounds of reality television. This time, though, it was official. It was on record. It was serious. Scrappy's lawyer was the first to rise, his voice steady yet powerful. "Your Honor, my client was hospitalized after being physically attacked by Mr. Frost. This is not about a storyline for television. This is about accountability. This is about safety. This is about a man who has been humiliated, disrespected, and finally endangered by someone who believes his status makes him untouchable." The words rang out in the room, setting the tone for what was about to become one of the most shocking trials reality TV had ever spilled over into real life. The words from Scrappy's lawyer landed like a hammer. The sound of pens scribbling and camera shutters snapping filled the courtroom. Outside, fans screamed as soon as the quotes hit Twitter. Within minutes, hashtags were everywhere. Inside the room, however, Kirk's attorney rose, his voice calm, slick, and rehearsed, as though he had delivered the same speech 100 times before. "Your Honor," he began, "what happened here was nothing more than a misunderstanding, a heated moment made bigger by the cameras. The so-called assault was nothing more than reality television edited for drama. My client is not a criminal. He is a husband, a father, a businessman. This case has no real weight." The polished delivery almost sounded convincing, but the quiet murmurs from the gallery told a different story. People weren't just judging this case. They were remembering Kirk's past. They remembered Jasmine. They remembered Rashida crying on national television, broken by his betrayals. They remembered the scandals, the receipts, and the apologies that always came too late. Kirk wasn't just defending himself against Scrappy. He was fighting years of public opinion, and that fight was one he was already losing. Scrappy never looked away from him. He sat perfectly still, his jaw clenched, his hands locked together in front of him. His silence was louder than any outburst could have been. His eyes carried that unshakable fire. The kind of look that said he was done being played with, done being humiliated, and ready to see this through no matter how long it took. When the judge finally spoke, his voice cut through the noise. "This case has enough evidence to move forward. Both parties will prepare for testimony." The gavel hit, sharp and final. The entire room erupted. Gasps and shouts filled the air as camera flashes went off like lightning. Rashida's eyes filled with tears, her hand still clutching Kirk's. Jock muttered under his breath, "Damn, this real now?" Yandy and Mendices exchanged grim looks, both realizing this wasn't just reality TV anymore. It was something far more serious. Then, cutting through the chaos, came a voice everyone recognized. From the back of the room, dressed in a bold red blazer, stood Tasha K. Her smirk was impossible to miss, her phone already recording. "Don't worry, y'all," she announced just loud enough for everyone to hear. "I got the real receipts. This trial? It's about to get real messy." Heads turned. Cameras clicked again. The bailiff tried to hush her, ordering her to sit down, but the damage was already done. Within minutes, Tasha K was trending. Tweets exploded, fans speculated, and both Scrappy and Kirk knew instantly that her involvement meant nothing was going to stay private for long. Scrappy clenched his jaw tighter. Kirk's face drained of color. Rashida whispered under her breath, "Oh my God." The storyline had shifted yet again, from a hospital bed to a courtroom, and now to the one woman known for tearing open secrets with a single post. The morning of the next hearing looked less like a legal proceeding and more like a blockbuster movie premiere. Paparazzi swarmed the courthouse steps. Fans crowded behind barricades, holding homemade signs that split the sides. Some read, "Justice for Scrappy," while others shouted, "Free Kirk." Their chants echoed down the street, so loud that clerks inside whispered they had never seen a case like this before. Scrappy arrived first. He walked steadily, his black suit tailored sharp against his frame. He wore no jewelry, no chains, no flash, just a man who wanted the world to take him seriously. His face was calm, almost too calm, but his eyes carried a weight heavier than any accessory. Behind him, his lawyer carried a leather briefcase. Every step calculated, ready to cut through whatever excuses Kirk's defense team planned to throw out. Inside the gallery, Yandy Smith and Mendices Harris sat quietly, their presence alone saying enough. They didn't need to speak. Their being there was a statement in itself. Yandy clutched her phone, ready to post updates to her millions of followers, but her expression showed she also braced herself for whatever storm was about to come. Minutes later, Kirk arrived with Rashida. His face wore the same calm mask he always put on, but the cameras picked up the beads of sweat forming at his temples. Rashida gripped his hand tightly, her loyalty still unshaken in public, but her eyes told another story. They were heavy with exhaustion, heavy with years of whispered rumors, heavy with defending a man who had dragged her through humiliation, after humiliation. The whispers in the crowd weren't kind. They cut into her like knives. Why is she still standing by him? Why is she still protecting him after everything? Kirk tried to smirk for the cameras, but even he knew this wasn't VH1. There were no edits here. No producers to decide which scenes stayed in and which ones were cut. He couldn't charm his way out of this. This was real. The judge entered, and once again his gavel slammed down hard. "This is not a spectacle," he barked. "This is a court of law. Let's begin." The booming words silenced the whispers. Scrappy's lawyer stood first. His tone was confident, controlled. "Your Honor, my client was hospitalized after being shoved and attacked by Mr. Frost. This is not just a reality TV moment. This is about safety, accountability, and consequences. My client has carried this feud for years, but this time it nearly cost him his life." He gestured toward Scrappy, who sat motionless, his eyes locked forward, jaw tight. Kirk's lawyer didn't hesitate to respond. His words flowed smoothly, practiced and polished. "Your Honor, this was nothing more than heated words captured on camera. What the plaintiff calls an attack was dramatized by editing. My client is no criminal. He is a husband, a father, a man of family values. This entire case is nothing but TV theatrics being dragged into a courtroom." Mr. Scrappy knew exactly what he was signing up for when he joined the show. Rashida nodded slightly at the defense, but her grip on Kirk's hand tightened, as if she was trying to convince herself as much as the court. Then, the testimonies began. Scrappy was called to the stand first. He walked slowly, every step deliberate, and sat down. His voice was low but steady as he began. "I've been in fights before," he admitted. "I've lived through drama, but this was different. I wasn't on no set. I wasn't acting. Kirk pushed me so hard I lost my breath. I couldn't move. Next thing I know, I'm on a stretcher. And the craziest part? All I ever wanted was for this group to get along, but I almost paid with my life for it." His words cracked toward the end, his voice trembling ever so slightly. His eyes shimmered, though he refused to let tears fall in front of the cameras. Pride held him together even as the weight of his words filled the room. The gallery gasped. Some people shook their heads. Others stared at Kirk, whose face remained locked in a stiff expression. The testimony had only just begun, but the tone was set. This wasn't going to be another storyline. This was real, raw, and dangerous for everyone involved. The crowd outside roared every time new updates hit Twitter, and even the judge shifted in his chair, clearly aware of the circus forming around his courtroom. When Kirk finally took the stand, his voice came out louder than it needed to be, more defensive than convincing. "Look, I ain't put nobody in the hospital," he declared. "Yeah, we argued. Yeah, I shoved him, but come on. We've been doing this for years. It's part of the show. Part of the culture. If Scrappy say he almost died, that's exaggeration. That ain't me." He tried to sound calm, but the more he spoke, the more it came off like excuses. Scrappy stared at him coldly, lips pressed tight, refusing to flinch. Rashida sat stone-faced at Kirk's side, but the twitch in her jaw told the truth. She knew the room wasn't buying a word of it. Then the doors burst open. Tasha K stormed in like she owned the place. Bold red blazer blazing under the courtroom lights, phone already recording as if she were live streaming the trial itself. A folder was clutched in her other hand. The bailiff tried to stop her, but the judge didn't even look surprised. He knew her reputation too well. She smirked as she slid into a seat, her voice cutting through the silence. "Don't worry, Your Honor. I got receipts that'll show exactly what went down that night. Unseen footage. Text messages. Truth y'all ain't ready for." The gallery froze. Yandy rolled her eyes and muttered, "Of course." Mendici shook his head, whispering, "Here we go." Rashida turned pale, her grip on Kirk's arm tightening like she was holding on to the last bit of control. Kirk's eyes widened for a split second, panic showing through his carefully constructed mask. Scrappy tilted his head, smirked faintly, and whispered, "Drop it then." The judge tried to keep order. "Miss K, this is not a circus. If you have evidence, submit it properly." But Tasha wasn't about to back down. She waved the folder high, nails tapping against the paper like a countdown. "Oh, I'll submit it, but don't get it twisted. I'll drop it online too if y'all play with me. VH1 wanted drama? They ain't seen nothing yet." Bloggers went wild, their fingers flying across phones. Hashtags spiked in seconds. Outside, the screams of fans doubled as word spread that Tasha had new footage. Reporters scrambled, headlines drafting themselves. Tasha K could sink Kirk Frost in court. The noise grew so intense that the judge finally called for a recess. In the hallway, tempers exploded. Yandy turned on Kirk, her voice sharp. "This is what I've been saying. You the problem. Always acting untouchable. Now Scrappy's in a hospital bed and Tasha about to bury you." Mendici stood behind her, arms folded, glare heavy enough to pierce through Kirk's pride. Kirk tried to fire back, but Rashida yanked him aside, hissing, "Stop talking before you make this worse." Scrappy stayed in the corner, arms crossed, saying nothing. His lawyer leaned close, whispering they had enough to push through trial. Scrappy gave no answer. His silence said more than words. He had already decided. This wouldn't end in another fight. It would end with a verdict. Meanwhile, Tasha K sat casually, sipping from her water bottle like she wasn't at the center of chaos. Her smirk widened. "This trial? It's just the beginning. Wait till y'all see what's on camera too." When court reconvened, the atmosphere was suffocating. Fans outside had turned the courthouse into a full-blown event. their chants echoing so loud the windows had to be shut. Hashtags trended worldwide. Reporters with microphones swarmed like sharks waiting for blood. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was reality TV spilling into real life. Inside, Scrappy sat motionless, every detail of his presence sharpened to perfection. His suit was flawless, his eyes unshaken. He wanted the world to see a man who refused to be broken. Across the room, Kirk shifted nervously, his mask cracking with every dart of his eyes. Rashida gripped his arm so tightly it looked like she was holding him together. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Tasha K strutted to the witness stand, folder in one hand, phone in the other. Her smirk never faded. "Your Honor," she said boldly, "what I have isn't gossip, it's evidence, footage from that night. Camera 2, the angle nobody's seen." She slid a USB across the table. Screens lit up, and suddenly grainy footage filled the room. Gasps broke out immediately. The video showed Kirk not just shoving Scrappy, but leaning in close, whispering venom before shoving him so hard he stumbled back. In the corner, Rashida's voice could be heard pleading, "Kirk, stop," while Jock half-heartedly tried to step in. The angle left no room for editing. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't for TV, it was raw, uncut proof. The gallery erupted. Bloggers typed furiously. Fans outside screamed even louder as word leaked. Scrappy's jaw tightened, but for the first time, relief flickered across his face. Validation. Proof he wasn't exaggerating. Kirk's face drained of color. His bravado shattered as he leaned into Rashida, whispering furiously, "How the hell she get that?" Tears filled her eyes as she whispered back, "I told you this was too much." The judge's gavel slammed. "Quiet in this courtroom," his tone thundered. But even he couldn't disguise the weight of what the footage showed. This evidence clearly displays aggression. It will be taken into account. Young Jock was called next. Normally the joker of the crew, his humor was gone. He shifted in his seat, nervous. "Man, I was there." Kirk shoved him hard. "I tried to stop it, but Scrappy went down fast. That wasn't no TV edit. That was real." His voice cracked as loyalty gave way to honesty. Then came Rashida. For years she had stood by Kirk through every scandal, every betrayal. But on that stand, the mask cracked. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I begged him to stop that night. I knew it had gone too far. And now we're here." The courtroom fell silent. Even the fans outside seemed to hush, as if waiting. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. His voice was steady and stern. "Mr. Frost, the evidence and testimony are clear. You are guilty of assault. This court sentences you to probation, mandatory anger management classes, and financial damages to be paid to Mr. Scrappy. Any further incidents will bring harsher consequences." The gavel slammed. Gasps filled the room. Scrappy exhaled deeply, his shoulders finally loosening. He turned to Kirk, his voice quiet but sharp. "This ain't just about me. This about all the years you thought you could play with people's lives. Not anymore. Got checked today, and it wasn't by me. It was by the truth." Kirk stood stiff, his pride shattered. He snapped at reporters as cameras swarmed. "This ain't over. Y'all think he won, but I'll show you who really runs this city." Scrappy walked out calm, reporters chasing him with questions. He answered only once, "I just want peace. Let the truth speak for itself." His calmness hit harder than any scream could. And in the corner, Tasha K smirked, phone raised. "Another day, another receipt, and trust me, there's still more y'all ain't seen." The feud had gone from reality TV stages to hospital rooms to a courtroom. And even with a verdict, the war felt far from over. If you're following this saga and want every update as it unfolds, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what comes next.